How's it going, people, and welcome to the SYNTHO app. A lot of you have been asking how to create that Max Dean Eastenderz style of track, so that's exactly what we're going to be covering today. Let's get stuck in. I have here the foundation of a Max Dean sort of style track. It has lots of swung percussion, stabs, and a very classic house bass in it. So first of all, we're going to try and dissect this, and then we can look at arranging it into a full track. So I have here the initial elements. Of course, some bells. And then we've got the basis of a breakdown. And we can look at adding some more elements to this, but this is going to be the foundation of our track. So first of all, let's have a look at the bass line and what we've got there. See, the bass line is made up of two parts. We've got this pluck synth here. And then we've got this sub here. Now, I've built this up really simply using 3 notes. So we've got the D, the E, and the F. And that's playing in a really simple pattern. So we're just moving up and down that scale. It's a nice sort of rhythmic pattern, and it really suits this plucked bass sort of sound. To add a little bit of variation, I've gone up an octave, and this just keeps the listener engaged, as well as adding a nice bit of variety to the bass line. So we've gone from the D, up an octave, and then back down to that same octave, onto the E and the F. Now for the processing for this, I've got some really simple stuff, just some saturation, slightly boosting the mids and the highs. It's a really simple sawtooth wave with an envelope on it. But what I've done is filter out all the low end, because whilst I could have used the sub from this bass, it sounds good, but actually we can create a much fatter tone by layering a sub bass underneath. So together, you've got a really nice fat tone. You've got the sub dedicated for all those bass frequencies, and then you've got the pluck synth to be able to add a bit of extra tonality, as well as making sure that it's heard on smaller systems. To beef up the sub, I've just sent this to a compression send. So this is a parallel compression send, so it's really going to fatten up that bass, and this will mean that you're mixing in a heavily compressed signal with the original, allowing you to easily mix the two together and create a fuller, fatter sound. So you can hear, that's just adding a nice bit of extra subbiness. If I went to the extreme, that's obviously too much, but you can really hear the effect that that's having on the bass. So layered together, that creates this really nice bass line. As the foundation for our track. Next, we'll have a look at the percussion. So this is really simple stuff. I've just got a hat, then a clap, and then I'm going for some 808 closed hats. And I've tried to create this rhythm by using the 16th note arpeggiator, and I've set it to swing 16. And this just means that I can then play in a nice rhythm. So all I have to do is hold down at different patterns, and this is a great way of putting in 16th note rhythm patterns for your percussion. Rather than worrying about the timing of things, I can be more focusing on the general groove, and the arpeggiator is doing the heavy lifting for me. Finally, I've just sidechained this to the kick so that there's no clashing notes. And then also underneath, I have got the 606 core kit, just having some extra 16th notes in there. And this is just going to help keep the groove nice and full and add that tiny little bit of extra energy that we want to the percussion section. Then I've got 2 snares and rims. So I've got this rim shot here, and this is just filling the space in between the claps, snares, and kicks. And then finally, I've got a snare drum doing a similar business. And again, I've got the arpeggiator on this to add some nice extra rhythms to the snare. But in context with the track. So really, I've got some nice simple percussion there, but because I'm using the swing, it adds a bit of extra groove. And also I'm trying to make sure that none of my main sub percussion sections are clashing with each other. So I'm trying not to have clashing percussion sounds over the top of each other. And this way you can get a more complex groove and everything has their own space to breathe as well. So again, in context then with the bass line. Already we've got a nice foundation for the track there. So now we're going to have a look at the stab. Now this stab is a very foundation part of this track. You're in a lot of Max D and stuff, you have these really sort of classic house stabs, real reference to the kind of 90s house. And these are actually really easily made in Ableton. Everything you hear is going to be native to Ableton. The only thing I've used externally are going to be some extra samples, and then also the Kickstart plugin, but then that can be replaced with a compressor really easily. So we've got this stab here. And there's really nothing complex going on. All I've got is a simple analog as the foundation. And that is simply a square wave and a sawtooth wave layered together. One is pitched down an octave. I've then added some saturation for a bit of beefiness. I've EQ'd some of the low end out. And one of the keys is adding chorus. Chorus is going to really soften the sound and really take away some of that harshness. It also has a little bit of width, so it really gives a nice tone to the synth. Because without it, it's a lot harsher and it really needs to be softened, and the chorus is this in a great way. And then finally, we've just got some ping pong delay just for a bit of character and depth. And this is being played in a really simple pattern. And all I've done here is to figure out a chord. I've used the bass line as a foundation and then worked from there. So I've got my D. That's going to be my root note. Because my bass line is running in D, that's the main note I'm using. That's going to be the key that we've used across the track. And so we use this as the foundation for our chord. Then I've got the E and the F using the bass line. But if I play those together, it sounds a bit harsh. It sounds a bit dissonant. It doesn't really suit this tone of the track. So I'm going to use the D and the F together. Play those together. But it's still a little bit dark, so we need one more note on there to make a triad chord. So let's have a look. I've used the A there. Again, the G is a little bit too dark for me. So that A there is really nice. It's a really simple chord, and you can create that just by using the foundation notes of your bass line and then just figuring out what an extra note would go in there. If you don't know your music theory, this could be a great way to be able to write in those stabs easily. So this is just from a sort of syncopated style offbeat stab pattern. So in context with a kick. And I've just got a little bit of variation at the end just so it doesn't sound too repetitive. Finally, we've got the bells and then the leads. So this is a really, really simple pattern. And again, I'm just using the notes from my bass line before. So I've got the D, I've got the E, and I've got the F. Whilst I was trying to figure out a pattern, I did turn on the arpeggiator, but I don't actually need that for this particular pattern. However, the arpeggiator, again, is a great way of creating new rhythmic patterns. This is also an Ableton preset, so be able to access this so easily on any copy of Ableton. Next up, we have the CZ101 organ, and this is actually sampled from the original. But what I've done is I've taken all those samples and I've dropped it into a sampler so that you can play it across your keyboard. You've probably heard this in a lot of recent house tracks. If you want to know how I made this sort of style of instrument, then drop me a comment below and I can always do a video on how to create your own sample-based instruments on Ableton. And again, I'm just using the notes from the bass line. So I've got that D, E, and F. So now, really simple pattern, and it's just a bit of extra synthy goodness just to really fill out the track and add some variety for the listener to latch onto. The final element that I've got in here is this drone that's kind of moving in and out with an LFO tremolo sort of effect. And I made this really easily. This has got a tremolo effect on the synth. And all you want to do is just change the rate of that tremolo to create that movement effect. It's a nice loose sound because it's not matched to the timing of the track. And what I've done here is I've used the LFO, which is originally a Max for Live plugin, but you can find it really easily in your audio effects and then go to modulators and then use this LFO. Now you can map this to anything in Ableton and it will automatically move that parameter. So I've attached it to the tremolo rate. I've adjusted it so that it will move slowly, reduce the depth so that it's only moving within a certain amount because I don't want it to be too extreme moving left or right. You'll see it only moves within this sort of small window. So it only goes down to about 3 Hertz. And this is a nice drone to just fill in that space underneath the lead synths. So now that we've got to start to look at arranging the track and really filling it out a bit more and turning it into a finished project. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at arranging this. So let's, for the intro, get rid of the stab and the bass, and then we're going to do one more and we're going to copy this bass over so it kind of leads up. So we have intro, bass in, and then stab in. So let's press record. Go and then add the bass. Breakdown. Then start to bring elements back in again. And we'll leave it at that. and we can start to fill it out and then work on the arrangement after that.
Join the next generation of house music creators with SYNTHO. It's time to take your music production to the next level. We've got everything from in-depth beginners courses to advanced mixing techniques. SYNTHO is your all-encompassing music education platform. Learn from some of the hottest world touring DJs. It's your chance to unlock house music secrets from industry professionals. Get one-on-one feedback on your music with SYNTHO's bespoke feedback system.
These guys aren't biased to your track. They will tell you what you need and when you need it.
Use this to make fully finished tracks to send to labels and artists. It's now time for you to reach for the labels of your dreams. Get access to your favorite artists, tailored learning paths, and learn anytime. Head to our website now and turn your house music dreams into a reality.
So one of the things we can start to look at is having a few extra layers. So I've got this vocal here, and again, this is something just to fill out, something for the listener to latch onto in this kind of breakdown section. So let's have a look.
I'll tell you what I know. I know that, in fact, too many kids that begin with pot end up with heroin, then on to LSD. I know that if you drink, you suffer a loss of judgment if you drink to excess.
Add
But I
some
also
delays to that just for a bit of depth and character. And there's this one bit as well, which will be really cool just to go before the drop.
So don't you try to equate liquor. We were talking about marijuana. We still are.
Here it is. So let's just, this bit,
Marijuana is the flame, heroin is the fuse, LSD is the bomb.
and then it'll go back into a drop. So I'm gonna maybe, yeah, so that's 4 bars. So we're gonna have that really just before the drop. And then we can maybe just adjust the vocal so it kind of
And
lets
study the
in there.
effects of LSD. People who haven't had a dose in weeks sail out on another trip. They never know when. The minute they drop one acid capsule. Marijuana is the flame, heroin is the fuse.
Yeah, maybe just even cut that out. So let's have a listen.
Years ago, we've had time now to see and study the effects of LSD. People who haven't had a dose in weeks sail out on another trip. They never know when. Marijuana is the flame, heroin is the fuse, LSD is the bomb. They never know when. Another trip. They never know when. Marijuana is the flame, heroin is the fuse, LSD is the bomb.
Nice. So that's just there to kind of really fill out the breakdown. And then we're going to look at adding some effects and also some complementary elements to really help build this up to have more impact when we have the drop and bring all of our elements in. So let's maybe add a kick roll. So maybe just even if we take this over, add some extras in and drag this up. And then I'm just going to press B and drag the velocity times up. So again, if you're not sure, I've just dragged from the velocity section on the clip here, pressing the B to open the pencil tool, and then you can just click and draw in the intensity of those notes. So again, that sounds like this. And what I might do is just pull that kick down a little bit lower. So what you don't want to do is match the velocity of your last kick with the kick that happens in the main beat, because then you kind of lose that impact. Because if you have it just a little bit quieter or a little bit softer than your main kick, it has even more impact when that kick finally comes back in. So this will be then complementary.
The flame, heroin is the fuse, LSD is the bomb.
And then we can maybe have a look at adding some effects. So I'm just going to head into a sample pack. I'm sure we can find something here. There's first one, a reverse crash. Have that nice and quiet. This would be another good one to use, maybe on the break. And then we can always just duplicate that and then reverse it. So we can just duplicate this and then we can reverse it. And if you select it and then press the R key, that will just instantly reverse it. And we'll just make sure that this is bang on time so that it's not offbeat, and we can make sure that then that hits right in the big moment. And it's really important to not neglect your effects in your tracks, not just for this specific style. These are really there to guide the listener to create intensity and create tension. So then together, if we pull the volume down.
I'll tell you what I know. I know that in fact too many kids that begin with pot end up with heroin, then on to LSD. I know that if you drink, you suffer a loss of judgment if you drink to excess. But I also know that judgment returns when you sober up. I know, and so do you. When you flip out on an acid trip, you never know when you're going to slip out again. This is now, Bentley, not a couple of years ago. We've had time now to see and study the effects of LSD. People who haven't had a dose in weeks sail out on another trip. They never know when. Marijuana is the flame, heroin is the fuse, LSD is the bomb.
And then you have that kind of impact when all those elements come back in. So that's sounding good. I think there's a few things we can do. That delay is getting a little bit in the way, so we can pull that down. And this really is the foundation of everything. And really now it's about adding those small little extra elements just to really fill out the track. So now I'm going to look at maybe just reversing this crash again. So it's kind of a bit of an impact downlifter. So I'm going to press the R key again, and this is going to then impact that. That kind of maybe doesn't sound quite right. So rather than use that, let's use a 909 crash. So let's create a new MIDI channel. Let's head over to the 909 core kit. These are all there with Ableton, so be able to follow along easily and use this in your own projects. And we're going to really help this to create a bit of intensity as well as having that impact sound on the main drop. So we have this tone here, channel. So yeah, so we're just going to have that sort of classic 4/4 build pattern for the crash.
Heroin is the fuse,
So have it.
Marijuana is the flame, heroin is the fuse, LSD is the bomb.
Capture that MIDI. So if you have played something in and you haven't pressed the record button, you can easily capture it using the MIDI capture button, because Ableton is constantly recording MIDI. So all you need to do is head over to this little square here. This is currently grayed out because I haven't played anything in yet. But if I were to press play,
you never know when you're going to slip out again. This is now, Bentley, not a couple of years ago.
I was pressing those MIDI notes. All I'd have to do is press this MIDI capture button. And then now it's got the MIDI in exactly as it is. Now I normally have record quantization turned on, which means that when I record stuff in, it's automatically quantized. But when you use the MIDI capture button, the MIDI you've put in is not quantized. You need to make sure you quantize it. So we're going to go over to the clip. We're going to Command A and then Command U to quantize it. You can, of course, right click and hit the quantize button as well. One of these notes is slightly off, so I'm just going to drag this over so that it's perfectly in time. So now we should have this, pull this down.
Marijuana is the flame, heroin is the fuse, LSD is the bomb.
And finally, we're just missing that final impact crash. So we're going to close this, cut this by pressing Command and E, and then we can select this and press Command C to copy it, and then Command V to paste that in. So now we've got this. Nice. Just pull this down so that stab is a little loud. And then we have really the foundation of our track. So we can maybe do one final thing, and I'm just thinking maybe we can filter in this percussion here, because it kind of comes a little bit sudden.
And so do you. When you flip out on an acid trip, you never know when you're going to slip.
Yes, that's coming a little bit sudden. So maybe we can add an auto filter to this just to get a little bit of extra variety and just for something else for the listeners to kind of latch onto rather than it just be so constant. So let's maybe have it peak around here and then just bring this down so it's gently filters in.
You never know when you're going to slip out again. This is now, Bentley, not a couple of years ago. We've had time now to see and study the effects of LSD. People who haven't had a dose in weeks sail out on another trip. They never know when. Marijuana is the flame, heroin is the fuse, LSD is the bomb.
There we are. And that has that nice little bit of extra flavor to it for the listener to just sort of engage with. So there you have the foundation of that Max Dean sort of Eastenderz style track. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video and this has helped you push you in that direction of that sound, as well as a few nugs of information that you probably picked up along the way. You can also download this project file. So if you want to have a look at what I've done or use some of the patches in your own projects, then you can download that below. If you've enjoyed this video, drop me a comment below. If there's any other artists you want to see replicated in the app, then let us know. I'll see you on the next video.